Okay, this will be the Pre-AP Unit 7 test review. So we're going to start with number 1. And number 1, we're just adding two polynomials. So the first thing we have to do is just look for like terms. Since this is plus here, all we're doing is taking the like terms and adding them together. So I'm just going to write these. So we have x to the third and 4x to the third. So I'm going to write 1x to the third plus 4x to the third. Our next ones are the x squared, so 3x squared and negative 1x squared. So if there's not a number there, remember it's a 1. So plus 3x squared minus 1x squared. Then I have negative 4x and negative 6x. Those are like terms. So negative 4x minus 6x. And then I have this 6 left here. There's no like terms over here, so I'm just going to rewrite that 6. Now all I have to do is just add the coefficients and leave the exponents the same. So with our x to the third, I have 1 plus 4 is 5x to the third. Then with 3x squared and negative 1x squared, 3 minus 1 is 2x squared. Then I have negative 4x and negative 6x. When you add those, you get negative 10x. And then this 6 is all by itself, so plus 6. Next one's going to be the same stuff, so we're just going to figure out what our like terms are. Start with 3x cubed. The one that matches that is just 1x cubed. Then I have negative 1x squared, negative 3x squared. Then I have negative 7x, and then there's not another x over here, so I'm going to just rewrite negative 7x. And last, I have 6 and negative 4. So plus 6 minus 4. Now we just combine like terms like the last one. So 3 plus 1 will be 4x cubed. Negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4x squared. Negative 7, nothing to combine it with, so I just rewrite negative 7x. And then positive 6 minus 4 is just 2. So that will be our answer. Now this next one, it's the same thing except we have the subtraction sign right here, which means I have to change the signs of all of these. So I'm going to rewrite this as 2x to the third minus 6x squared plus 6, but then I have to change every single one of these signs. So this negative 2x to the third turns into positive 2x to the third. Negative 5x squared turns to positive 5x squared. Positive x turns to negative x. And now it's just like our first problems we did, so I'm just going to find the like terms. So I have 2x cubed and 2x cubed. If you add those together, 2 plus 2 is 4x cubed. Then I have negative 6x squared, 5x squared. So negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1x squared. Then I have this x here. It's a negative x, so I'm just going to rewrite minus x. And then I have this 6 all alone, so I'm going to put plus 6. And that's your answer. Next one, same thing. Since we have this subtraction, we need to change all of these signs. So I'm going to rewrite the first one the same. So 8x cubed minus 2x squared plus x plus 10. This positive 2x cubed turns into a negative 2x cubed. Negative 6 turns to positive 6. Positive 9x turns to negative 9x. And again, we just have to find all of our like terms. So to start, we have 8x cubed, negative 2x cubed. So 8 minus 2 is 6x cubed. Then I have this negative 2x squared, but nothing matches that, so I'm just going to rewrite negative 2x squared. Then I have this 1x and negative 9x. So 1 minus 9 is negative 8x. And then last I have this 10 and this 6. So 10 plus 6 is 16. And that's all you have to do on those. Alright, for 3, maybe. Alright, so 3 says find the area of a rectangle with a length of 2x minus 3 and a width of 5x plus 7. So for this one, it's just wanting the area, and area equals length times width. So all we have to do is multiply these two lengths and the widths they gave us. So it's going to end up being 2x minus 3 times 5x plus 7. And then this is just a normal multiplication problem where we use the box. So on the top I'm going to put 2x minus 3. On the side I'm going to put 5x plus 7. So 5x times 2x, 5 times 2 is 10. X times x is x squared. 5x times negative 3 is negative 15x. 2x times 7 is 14x. And 7 times negative 3 is negative 21. So now if you notice, the diagonals are the same. So we have to add those because they're like terms. So our final answer here is 10x squared. Negative 15 plus 14 is negative 1x. Negative 21 doesn't have a like term, so minus 21. So this right here would be your answer. Now 3b is going to be the same thing. So I'm going to take 6x minus 1 times 2x plus 9 because those are the length and the width. And I'm going to draw my box. On the top I have 6x minus 1. On the side I have 2x plus 9. So 6x times 2x, 6 times 2 is 12. X times x is x squared. 2x times negative 1 is negative 2x. 9 times 6x is 54x. And 9 times negative 1 is negative 9. So if you look at the diagonal, we have x's. Those are the like terms. Our final answer would be 12x squared. 54 minus 2 plus 52x minus 9. Alright, number 4. So these want us to multiply again, except now it's a 3 by 3 instead of a 2 by 2. So it's going to be the same thing, except we need a 3 by 3 box, not a 2 by 2. So I'm going to have 3 columns and 3 rows. And then I'm just going to write the polynomials it gives us. So 2x squared, 6x, and 6. And down the side I have 2x squared minus 3x plus 8. Then I just have to multiply everything. So remember, you multiply your numbers and add your exponents. So for this first box, 2 times 2 is 4. X squared times x squared, you add the exponents. So 2 plus 2, we would get x to the 4th. Then we just keep going. So 2x squared times 6. 2 times 6 is 12. X squared times x, so that's 2. 3x's be x to the third. 2x squared times 6 would be 12. Then we still have the x squared. Then we go down here. Negative 3x times 2x squared should be negative 6x cubed. Negative 3x times 6x, negative 18x squared. Negative 3x times 6, negative 18x. Then down to the bottom row, 2x squared times 8, 16x squared. 8 times 6x would be 48x. And 8 times 6 is 48. So now if you look at the diagonals, they should have the same exponents if you did it correctly. So if you have exponents that don't match in your diagonals, you probably did something wrong. And with these 3x3s, we're going to have 3 sets of diagonals instead of just the 1. So now we can just write our final answer. Remember, this top box and this last box won't have any like terms. So I'm just going to have 4x to the 4th to start. Then I just combine the diagonals. So 12x cubed plus negative 6x cubed will be 6x cubed. Then I combine all 3 of these. So 16x squared minus 18x squared is negative 2x squared. Plus 12x squared would be 10x squared. Then we have 48x and negative 18x. So those become 30x. This 48 doesn't have a like term, so I just put plus 48. And this is our final answer here. So now I'm going to erase this part so I can do the next one. So if we look at this one, same thing. So I'm still going to set up a 3x3 box. And on the top, I'll have 3x squared minus 4x plus 1. 4x squared minus 5x plus 2. Then we just multiply. So 4x squared times 3x squared is 12x to the 4th. Add your exponents. 4x squared times negative 4x is negative 16x to the 3rd. 4x squared times 1 is 4x squared. 3x squared times negative 5x is negative 15x cubed. Negative 5x times negative 4x would be a positive 20x squared. Negative 5x times 1 is negative 5x. 3x squared times 2, 6x squared. Negative 4x times 2, negative 8x. 1 times 2 is 2. And again, look at our diagonals. They should all be the same. So these are our x cubes. Those are the x squareds. And those are just the x's. So since all of those line up, we did it correctly. And our final answer is 12x to the 4th. Then we have negative 15 plus negative 16. That'd be negative 31 x to the 3rd. Then we have 20x squared plus 4x squared is 24x squared. Plus 6 would be 30x squared. Then we have negative 8 and negative 5. So negative 8 plus negative 5 is negative 13x. And then this 2 doesn't have any like terms, so plus 2. And that's the final answer. Alright, on to 5. So another box one, except now we have 2 variables instead of just 1. So I'm still going to make a 2x2 box because there's 2 terms in each of these. Now I'm going to start with negative x and 2y, 3x, and 4y. Then I'm still going to multiply like normal. So 3x times negative x. So that's basically a negative 1 here. So negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. And there's two x's, so x squared. Now I have 3x times 2y. So 3 times 2 is 6. Then I have x and a y. So I'm just going to write x, y. Next I have 4y and negative 8, or negative x. So I'm going to have negative 4. And I want to write it the same order here so we don't get confused. So it's going to be another xy. Then last I have 2y and 4y. 2 times 4 is 8. Y times y is y squared. So diagonal is still like terms even though we have more than one variable, which means our final answer is negative 3x squared. 6xy minus 4xy is 2xy plus 8y squared. And that's your answer. Alright. And next one, same kind of thing. So we're going to make a 2 by 2 box. So I have 6x, 4y, negative 5x, and 7y. Multiply these. 6 times negative 5 is negative 30x squared, because there's two x's. 4y times negative 5x is negative 20xy. 6x times 7y is 42xy. And 4y times 7y is 28y squared. So now our diagonal, we have xy's again. We just combine our like terms, so our final answer is negative 30x squared. 42xy and negative 20xy would give you 22xy. And then 28y squared. So that's all the multiplying that we have. Now we'll go on to factoring. So these first two, the sixes, says factor 8x to the 7th plus 24x to the 6th plus 12x to the 5th. So since we see exponents that are bigger than a squared, that's pretty much going to tell you need to find a GCF. So let's think if we can come up with something that divides 8, 24, and 12. So at first you may think 8 because 8 and 24, but 12 cannot be divided by 8. But if we figure it out, it's going to be a 4. Because a 4 can divide 8, 4 can divide 24, and 4 can divide 12. So we're going to have a 4 on the outside. And then we take our smallest exponent. So the smallest exponent here is this x to the 5th. So I'm going to have 4x to the 5th outside of my parentheses. That's what we're factoring out. Now I just have to see what's left. So I'm going to divide my numbers and subtract my exponents. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. X to the 7th divided by x to the 5th. So I subtract the exponents. I get x squared. Then 24 divided by 4 is 6. X to the 6th. Take away 5 of them. We're just left with 1x. Then 12 divided by 4 is 3. X to the 5th divided by x to the 5th. There's no x's left. So this right here is our answer. Alright, next one. Same thing, we're going to factor out what we can. So if I look at 9, 63, and 90, you can see that a 9 divides each of those. And then my smallest exponent is x squared. So 9 divided by 9 gives us 1. X to the 6th, take away x squared. You subtract, you get x to the 4th. Negative 63 divided by 9 is negative 7. X cubed, take away x squared, we're left with just x. And then negative 90 divided by 9 is negative 10. X squared, take away x squared, there's nothing left. So this right here is our answer. So these both use GCF. 7a and b say factor and find the zeros of the function. So if you notice these, they have 4 terms, which tells us it's going to be grouping. So the first step with grouping is you write it as 2 separate parentheses, so split it in the middle. 8r to the third minus 64r squared plus r minus 8. Now we just have to see what we can factor out of this side and this side separately. So looking at only the 8r cubed and 64r squared, both of these can be divided by an 8, so I'm going to take an 8 out. And then the smallest exponent is r squared, so r squared will also go on the outside. Then 8 divided by 8 is 1. R cubed divided by r squared, there's just 1 r left. Negative 64 divided by 8 is negative 8. R squared, take away r squared, there's nothing left. Now if I look at r minus 8, we can't factor anything out of both of those. So I'm going to put a 1 on the outside. I'm just going to leave it as 1r minus 8. Now if you notice, these parentheses are the same, so we've done it correctly. And our final answer, I take the 2 things we factored out, so 8r squared and 1. Those go together in a set of parentheses from here and from here. And then the second one is the one we have duplicated, so 1r minus 8. And then this would be our answer here. And then this tells you to find the zeros, but for this one, we have 8r squared plus 1, which is not what we've learned, so ignore that find the zeros part. I'm actually going to take it off of your review, so it won't be on there. Alright, 7a says factor and find the zeros of the function. So same thing, split it in half. So we'll have 12r cubed minus 21r squared plus 28r minus 49. So if we look here, we can factor out a 3 because 12 and 21 both have a factor of 3. Our smallest exponent is r squared, so I'll take out an r squared. 12 divided by 3 is 4. R cubed divided by r squared is just r. Negative 21 divided by 3 is negative 7. And these r squareds cancel out. Second one, we have 28r and 49. The biggest number to factor out of those is a 7, so I'm going to put plus 7. And I'm left with 28 divided by 7 is 4. The r will stay. Negative 49 divided by 7 is negative 7. These parentheses are the same, so we've done it correctly. And our final answer here would be 3r squared plus 7, 4r minus 7. And again, don't worry about the find the zeros for this one. It'll be not on your paper. Okay. 8a says factor and find the zeros. This time we are going to actually find the zeros. But first we have to factor. This one only has 3 terms, so it can't be grouping, and there's no GCF here, so we're going to have to use A, B, and C. Nope, not A equals B. So I'm going to have A equals, B equals, C equals. So we look here, there's no coefficient on x squared. That means A equals 1, B equals 3, and C equals 18. Now I have to make my chart. So it'll be A times C plus minus. A times C is going to be 18. So my factors are 1 times 18, 2 times 9, and 3 times 6. And that's all of them. When we add them, we get 19. 9 plus 2 is 11. 6 plus 3 is 9. Subtract 18 minus 1 is 17. 9 minus 2 is 7. 6 minus 3 is 3. And if you remember, we don't want any negatives in this chart. So even though it's a negative 18, we don't want to put negatives here. It'll just make it more confusing. So now we want our B value is 3. The 3 is right here. But since it's in that subtraction column, we're going to have 1 positive and 1 negative. We just need to figure out which one goes where. So if we try that it's a negative 6 and a positive 3, negative 6 plus 3 would give us a negative 3. But the B value we want is a positive 3, so this is not going to be the one that we want. But if we did a positive 6 and a negative 3, that would give us the B value we were looking for. So the plus 1 is going to be the 6, the subtraction will be the 3. And this is our answer. But this one wants the zeros. So if you remember, you're going to have to take whatever this is and set it equal to 0. So if it's x plus 6 equals 0, subtract 6 from both sides. That's what tells us that x equals negative 6. That is one of our zeros. And then we have x minus 3 equals 0. So I add 3 to both sides, which means x equals positive 3 would be our second 0. So x equals negative 6, x equals positive 3. Notice that they're the opposite of what they were here. 8b is going to be the same thing. So I need A, B, and C. A is 1, B is 1, because there's no number here, and C is 56. So we make that chart. We have A times C plus and minus, and our A times C will be 56. So of course that's 1 times 56. 2 times, what is that one? 28. Not sure if there's a 3, let me check. There is no 3. But then we have 4 times 14. There's no 5. There's no 6. But then we have 7 times 8. Next one will be 8 times 7, which means we're repeating, so we're done. When we add, we get 57, 30, 18, and 15. Subtract, we get 55, 26, 10, and 1. So the B value we want is this 1. So it's going to be 1 plus and 1 minus again because it's in that subtraction column. So we just have to figure out which one goes where. So if I have 7 minus 8, that gives me the negative 1. And this B right here is a negative 1. So that means this is the one I want. So the 8 will be the negative, the 7 will be the positive. And that is our factored form. But again, we have to find the zeros. So at first, I'm going to have x plus 7 equals 0. Subtract 7 from both sides. We get x equals negative 7. Or if we had x minus 8 equals 0, add 8 to both sides. So x equals positive 8. These two are the zeros to this. Negative 7 and positive 8. All right, 9. So now we have to factor again. Notice that there's not 4 terms. We can't do grouping. There's not a GCF here. And this time our A is bigger than 1, so we're actually going to have to do the long way. So I'm still going to have A, B, and C. A is 2, B is 3, and C is 9. So when I make my chart, I have to actually multiply A times C. So A times C here is 2 times 9, which is 18. So that's 1 times 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6. Add, you get 19, 11, 9. Subtract, we get 17, 7, 3. The B value we're looking for is a 3. So that means this middle term is going to be split up into 6x and 3x. It's in the subtraction column, so one of these has to be negative. To get a positive 3, this 3 would have to be the negative one. So I have 2x squared plus 6x minus 3x minus 9. And again, make sure these middle terms add up to this value right here. So 6 minus 3 is 3. Now we have grouping. So I have 2x squared plus 6x plus negative 3x minus 9. The biggest thing we can factor out of this side is going to be a 2x, which will leave us with x plus 3. The biggest thing I can factor out of this one will be a negative 3. Notice since this first term is negative, that's why we took a negative out. So I'm left with x plus 3. Because negative 9 divided by negative 3 is positive 3. Since these parentheses are the same, we've done it correctly. And our final answer is 2x minus 3 from here and here, and x plus 3. But we still have to find the zeros, so I'm going to change colors for that. So to find the zeros, I'm going to have 2x minus 3 equal to 0. First, I'll add 3 to both sides. So I get 2x equals 3. Then divide by a 2, which means x equals 3 halves. That will be one of our zeros. For the other one, I have x plus 3 equals 0. Subtract 3 from both sides. So x equals negative 3. So negative 3 and 3 halves are the zeros there. Nine B will be the same as 9A. So A, B, and C. A is 4, B is 15, C is 25. We make our chart. So we have A times C plus and minus. A times C is 4 times 25, which is 100. The factors of 100 are 1 times 100, 2 times 50, 3 times nothing, 4 times 25, 5 times 20, 6 times nothing, 7 times nothing, 8 times nothing, 9 times nothing, then 10 times 10 is our last one. So add, we get 101, 52, 29, 25, and 20. Subtract to get 99, 48, 21, 15, and 0. You can hear Ava crying once again. And our b value we're looking for is 15, so it means we're going to use the 15 and the 20. So I'm going to split this up into 20x and 15x. One of these has to be a negative though, because it's in this subtraction column, and it will be the 20 that's negative this time. Then we just do grouping, so I'll put these two together and these two together. From the left side, I can factor out a 4x, which leaves me with x minus 5. From the right, I can factor out a 5x. Just kidding, just a 5. So I'm left with x minus 5. So our parentheses are the same, which means my final answer is 4x plus 5 and x minus 5. So that's our factored form. But now I need the zeros. So I'm going to start with 4x plus 5 equals 0. Subtract 5 from both sides. So I get 4x equals negative 5 divided by 4. So x equals negative 5/4 is our first one. Second one, I have x minus 5 equals 0. Add 5 to both sides. So x equals positive 5. And those two are the when a is greater than 1. Alright, last two. We have factor and find the zeros of the function. So these are our special cases because all of these are perfect squares and we have a subtraction sign in between. So if you remember, we're going to have one's a plus and one's a minus. I'm going to have a plus here and a minus here. I have to take the square root of both sides. The square root of 9x squared. Square root of 9 is 3 because 3 times 3 is 9. And the square root of x squared is just x. And the square root of 64 is going to be 8. So I'm going to have an 8 here and an 8 here. So this is our factored form. But now I have to find the zeros. So I'm going to set both of these equal to 0. So 3x plus 8 equals 0. You would subtract the 8. So I have 3x equals negative 8. Divide by 3. So x equals negative 8/3 is our first one. Then if I do 3x minus 8 equals 0, add 8 to both sides. So 3x equals 8 divided by 3. X would equal 8/3 and negative 8/3. Those are our two zeros. Ten B, last one, same thing as 10A. So all of these are perfect squares, so I'll set up one with a plus, one and a minus. Remember, it doesn't matter the order. Square root of both sides. So 25x squared, square root of that would be 5x. Square root of 49 would be 7 and 7. So that's our factored form. Now I just need the zeros. So 5x minus 7 equals 0. Add 7 to both sides. 5x equals 7 divided by 5. 7/5 is one of our zeros. Then I have 5x plus 7 equals 0. Subtract 7 from both sides. So 5x equals negative 7 divided by 5. So negative 7/5 and positive 7/5 are both our zeros. And that is the whole review.